I'm Maureen Allen from Macedon Valley Farm. This is another video, part of our series for inspiration on how to cook pastured meats this spring. Today I'm going to share with you my recipe for cooking pork chops that are honey seared and then braised. So you get a nice seared pork chop with a nice little sauce to go with it. So what I did is this morning, I knew I wanted to cook this recipe. I had my meat thawed out in the fridge last night. I took it out of the fridge this morning and seasoned both sides of my pork chops with salt and pepper. Put them back in the fridge. Just before I wanted to cook this, I took my pork chops back out and I took a teaspoon of honey and divided it amongst each side of the pork chop. So each side got about a quarter teaspoon of nice raw honey. I rubbed it into the meat really well and got that done on both sides of the pork chop. Next, I got my cast iron skillet and I'm heating it over medium-high heat. When my pan was really nice and hot, I added in a tablespoon of lard. So this is our pastured lard from our pigs. It's a nice creamy white cooking fat, perfect for searing meat. Also a good source of vitamin D. So I've got one side now nice and brown. I'm going to go ahead and sear the other side of my pork chop. You're just going to do it over really high heat so you get a nice crust on both sides. While that's going, I'll get my other ingredients. I've got a tablespoon of minced garlic, a couple tablespoons of red wine vinegar, a half a cup of water, and some rosemary, and a nice tablespoon of butter. So I'm going to make sure that both sides get this kind of nice dark crust on them. And then another thing that you really want to make sure you do is sear the fat cap. So you find out where a nice fatty section around your pork chop is. And you want to stand your pork chop up on edge like this. And just make sure that you get that fat nice and brown as well. That becomes really delicious and a really yummy treat when it's nice and seared and crispy like the rest of the pork chop is. There's also a nice flavorful and healthy part of the pork chop too. So I've got my nice crusty pork chop. It's not all the way cooked yet, but I'm going to put it on a plate and set it aside. Then I'm going to add the garlic to the pan. I'm going to just cook it really briefly, like 30 seconds. Then I'm going to add the vinegar. If you don't have vinegar, you could use wine. Okay, that's almost evaporated out, so I'm going to add the water now. I'm going to turn down the heat. I'm going to mix that up. I'm going to put in a tablespoon of butter and some rosemary. So I'm just going to do like a half teaspoon of rosemary. And my butter, this is just for extra flavor. If you don't, it's optional, you don't have to add the butter. But we love butter in our house. I'm going to stir all that in to melt. And then I'm going to put my pork chop back in. If I was doing this for my family, I'd have done 2 or even 4 pork chops at once. So make sure you've got a pan big enough for that. I've got my heat back down to medium-low. I'm going to cover the pan and cook it. It'll be just maybe another 4 or 5 minutes until your pork chop is done. I cook them until they're about 135 degrees internal temperature, but you could test or cook it to however you like your pork chops. Then you're going to want to remove the meat from the sauce and let it rest for about 10 minutes before you slice it. In the meantime, if you want the sauce to be thicker, you could cook it down more or just serve it the way it is. And enjoy!